Welcome to Coffee with the Sarlos. We are your hosts of the show, Karen and Kelly Sarlo. Whether you're struggling with grief or you just need answers, we connect you with spirit to find relief, clarity, and direction in life. We can help you move forward. Welcome back, everyone, to Coffee with the Sarlos. This is a little bit of a different style today. We have special guest back on with us, Carmen Theobald. Welcome.
Hi, Carmen.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, Karen. Hello, Kelly.
I'm excited for listeners because I feel like at this point, if you've been following us and listening to the podcast, that people are like, oh, it's going to be a good horse story.
Sure.
I hope so. And it's also going to be potentially a little bit of a difficult horse story, but with positive outcomes. So hang in there.
Beautiful. So we're going to kind of hand things over to you. You've got the story. I actually am one of the listeners today, so this is fun.
No, actually, we are both listeners today because even though I believe you saw me for the session, I don't remember the session at all. So I feel like I'm going to be an equal listener.
Well, how delightful. I'm so glad I get to share it with you again because your role that you played was critical in this story, Karen.
Okay.
Absolutely critical. Yeah.
Okay.
So for some of the listeners, they may have heard other shows where I spoke about two horses, Peyote and Two Moons, who were here for a time. Due to some really shitty circumstances, they had to leave. And what ensued is what I'm going to be sharing with us today. And I think that there's some themes that we can pull from at the end of the story that are very connected to all kinds of things we love to talk about. So Grace was with Peyote and Two Moons. This is a small herd of mares. Grace is a 25-year-old. She'll be 25 in a few days. She's really the matriarch of our herd. She's an elder in my view. She's a friend, teacher. She's truly one of my best friends and best guides in this life. She's also my rock solid partner in the work that we do. So for those who don't know, I'm the founder and director of Horse Sense North, and we offer personal growth, leadership, team development, and trauma recovery with the help of horses. And so the horses are really our partners in this work. We're not just saying, okay, do an obstacle course with them and they're a tool. They really are very much involved in their own wisdom and their own voice and choice in how the sessions go for people. And they're amazing at what they do. All of them are amazing. Grace is beyond. I don't have the words. Go for it. Yeah.
To me, Grace is the Professor McGonagall of the farm.
I love that.
And
I love that.
Yeah, you have the best staff.
It's the Harry Potter place for horses.
Oh man, I love that. That makes me so happy. And I feel like Grace would really be like, thank you for seeing me. Yeah.
She is powerful magic.
She is powerful magic. And whether this is connected to Professor McGonagall or not, Grace is also a complex being with things that come up from her past, her own patterns that come through, her own trauma responses that happen. And so Grace really has a very strong mothering instinct. She's had foals. She's had some very traumatic incidences with her foals, her babies in the past. I don't have to get too much into that, but just to know that she's had really traumatic experiences with beings that she has mothered, where they have either passed away, been taken away from her abruptly, all kinds of experiences where they've been ripped away from her connection, from her physical connection with them.
You have actually shared this with our listeners on previous episodes, and if people are interested, they can go back and search Carmen's name and listen to all of those episodes. They're equally as powerful.
Thanks, Kelly. So Peyote and Two Moons were no exception. Grace really took them under her wing, so to speak, and mothered them sincerely, fiercely, deeply. And we did our best to prepare Grace for their leaving by talking with her about it. We had set up a call with you, Karen, to kind of talk to the herd in general. But Grace actually didn't even show up in that call. And looking back, I think she was presenting her denial even then, even though we couldn't necessarily see it in that moment. And so what happened is Peyote and Two Moons left, got on the trailer, went down the road, just had gotten out of sight. And Grace was in such a panic and so distraught that she literally tried to run herself out of this world and into the spirit world to follow them.
Oh.
And so what that looked like in the physical reality of what I witnessed was that she took off running. She had been running around, but then she took off at this speed that for her and her size, by the way, she's a huge horse, and her age and all these other things was way too much. And she was running up a hill, which thankfully, because had it been downhill, it would have been the end. But it was very close to the end because she was running uphill and she stumbled and rotated in her fall. So she, what we call, had a rotational fall where she landed right, like she went right over her head, came a hair away from breaking her neck, and did all kinds of damage to her shoulder and hind end and all this stuff. But me watching at the time, I really didn't know if I had just watched the train wreck of the being that I perhaps love most in this world die right in front of me or be about to hit their end point. So as I am running to her and she's not getting up, she is on the ground. She had lifted her head, so I knew she was alive, but she was not moving other than that. And I got to her completely panicked and frantic myself. And I knew the person I had to call, or at least try to reach, was Karen. Because there's no one else in the world that I trust more to help me in that kind of emergency situation. I have innumerable moments of incredible trust that has been built both as a friend and in our channeling sessions, and the support that I receive, well, from both of you, and specifically for the channeling with you, Karen, as you're my person for that.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful, no matter if you answered or not, that I had the opportunity to be able to call you, that I knew I could lean on that trust to even try. Because it felt like I was alone in the world in that moment until I remembered that I wasn't. And I don't want to put down my partner, Aquila, who is also with me. I felt very connected and supported by him too, but there's this feeling of, what do I do now? Holy shit. Everything could be completely crumbling away for me if I were to lose her in that moment. And I know I will lose her one day, and my world will fall apart, and I will be okay eventually. But in that moment, I was more not ready than I've ever not been ready before. And it was also the fear of not just knowing she was potentially going to pass over to the other side, but how much trauma was she currently experiencing? How much pain was she currently experiencing? Do we have to do something immediately before even getting in touch with the vet? Now, of course, if we can involve the vet, that's definitely better. And if we have to put down an animal, of course, we'd rather go that route. But if the vet is many hours away, potentially forcing her to suffer in agony, we'd have to come up with another solution. And I was terrified of that.
Mm.
So I was calling you to hope that I would get clarity one way or another of what was going on. And of course, hoping for the best, but just looking for clarity of what was going to happen and what was happening, that Grace was potentially not capable of communicating to me in her state of shock and not moving on the ground. So for those who don't know horses, if a horse breaks their leg, there's potentially ways to support them, but 99% of the time, that's the end. Not to mention if she'd had a fracture in her neck or some other place in her spine. These are really serious things that as humans, maybe we can recover from sometimes, but horses, not the same. So it was so beautiful, relieving, just one of the best gifts of my life when you answered the phone. And immediately took part in the first responding that the three of us did, myself, Aquila, my chef partner in this work and in this life, and you, to support Grace in her immediate trauma recovery. Mm-hmm. Where you could give me the information that, although this was a massive trauma, give me the clarity that she did, in fact, try to run herself into the spirit world to try to follow these beings that she had been deeply loving and mothering for a long time, that she was in complete denial that they were actually leaving, even though we as the humans had done our role well of trying to prepare her, but she just simply refused to believe it. And that you were able to give us the information that, although this was really, really difficult for her body and she was in a huge amount of pain, doing your skill that you have so much amazing access to, accurate access to, scanning through her body, medical intuitive, telling us nothing was actually broken. Which meant that although this was going to be difficult and potentially a long recovery, and she may not ever work again doing the work, that I would not have to say goodbye to her today. And now everything felt way more doable, and I could be much more present for what came next, which was that you gave a play-by-play of what was happening as Grace ended up getting on her feet. You would say it just before it happened. She's going to get up soon. And then she got up. Or she would do something and then I would not say anything about it. And a moment later, you would describe what had just happened. She stood for so long without moving a muscle after she did get up because pain, shock, all the things. And you described that we were now going to form a triangle, myself, you, and Aquila, and create this triangle of healing, and told us where to stand with her. And you were going to be at a distance doing that with us, which to me feels so beautiful, especially because of all the unhealthy uses of triangles with triangulation, with narcissistic abuse. But we got to experience the healthy version of it with you that day.
My brain is to like just, I always like to explain for listeners like the gravity of what we're talking about, and because I know you are coming from this from a horse world, and I don't mean to interrupt you. I do want to back up though, because what Karen did, just so people understand, is allow you guys to understand not just the physical issues that she is trying to process when she stands up and is in shock, but it also allows you guys to both understand how to be there to comfort her, not in the physical realm, but with what she's trying to process emotionally. Because if a horse runs and falls, right, and they're just processing like, oh man, that's a shock to my body, what the fuck was that? That's one thing. But for you to understand that she is also trying to stand up and process that my babies just got ripped away from me. The way again, yes. The way that you and Aquila stand next to her and offer her her emotional support is entirely different. Entirely different. If you think about comforting your human child, right, because they've just tripped and fallen in a puddle, and they're just like, whoa, mom, what happened? That is very different than, I was running out of the driveway because dad packed his bags and left us, and I'm standing up trying to process that. How you show up for your kid is entirely different, right? So that clarity that you guys got in order to just be with Grace is so important. And then I think about the magic that you and Aquila create on that farm as co-facilitators with your staff horses, to stand in a triangle, not of abuse, but of geometric shapes that create energy and magic. Like here we are with these witches and wizards just harnessing all of the beauty to protect this matriarch. And I just, more emphasis needed to be put on what you guys just did and what your intention was. Proceed.
Carmen,
Thank
can
you.
I interject like every once in a while as a memory comes back?
Oh, yeah.
Like, when you started talking, I instantly started to have tears in my eyes at the very beginning, and just like a little steady stream of a tear coming out, but not feeling like I'm crying, but just, so I don't know how to explain it because it is crying. It just sounds silly, but it's just like a tear coming out. But I have this memory resurfacing of your phone call coming in. And I was sitting at my desk working, and I picked up the phone because it said Carmen Theobald on it. And of course, I'm picking up the phone when I see Carmen Theobald. And and I answered it, and you said, "Do you have time?" Is that right? You said something to me about like, do you have time? Like, I don't remember how you worded it, but it was like right now. And I just remember, and you can correct me if I have incorrect memories, of course. And I just remembered thinking, yes, I do right now. No matter what I'm doing, I do right now. Because in my world, you're one of my babies. So like you're like, to me, you and Kui are like Kelly's siblings. Like, so it only makes sense to me that if one of my children is calling and saying, "Do you have time?" and then they're only asking me that if they really need it. So yes, so I just remembered putting everything down, no matter what I was working on. I just remember putting it down and being present and going right within myself to go, what does she need? I need to be fully present. And you said something about I need, and I don't remember this, so please help me, but you said something about needing help with grace. And I don't remember what you said, but I remember standing up, taking my cell phone, and I laid down on the ground right behind my chair. I just went down, but I went down like, and my body went in a certain way. It went down on the ground. And please help in this part because I can't remember if I knew she fell because of the way I was going down. Because I wasn't like, I know I'm 61, but I wasn't like just getting down on the ground. I'm in fairly good shape. I can just sit down and lay down on the ground. But I remember sort of like just getting down on on the ground behind my chair and laying in a position and going, Carmen, like, and like being in Grace's body to be able to assess how she fell, being able to assess where in my body it hurts because of mirror touch synesthesia. It makes it, I'll say, a lot easier for Kelly and I to give the information because we're not just doing a body scan, which we want the body scan too. We want the guides to show us a scan of the bones. We want to see the muscles. We want to see the blood. We want to see all kinds of scans. We want Grace's spirit to say, this is where I hurt and this is what's happening. We want to hear it. We want to see it. But mother of God, I want to fucking feel it. Because if I can feel it with the synesthesia, as much as other days of the week, I hate synesthesia, like there's no tomorrow, I can't stand having it. It's in moments like this that make all of the other moments that make my life difficult worth it. Because now somebody's calling and saying, I need help. And I can literally go, oh, my right back muscle attaching to the SI joint or whatever it is feels pulled because I'm feeling it. So I just remember laying on the ground talking to you, like roughly, feeling and describing to you how I went down. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember calling and I asked, do you have time? I'm calling because I have an emergency. And you had that response and you were just immediately yes. And I said, Grace has had a catastrophic fall. And you told me that you were getting down on the ground, and proceeded from there. And I believe that as you got up and changed your position, so did she. And then you started to say she's going to start taking some steps. And as it was coming out of your mouth, she starts taking some steps.
Okay, and so like I can say to people that if there had been a camera in my office at that
We
point,
should do that.
camera in my office at that point, you might have seen me on the ground doing this, because I'm literally in positions with clients. I'm in positions with horses, with dogs, with cats, with birds. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm literally in those positions. And now people are really hearing, as much as people want to think I'm crazy, which is fine. I'm good with people thinking I'm crazy. It's all good. In moments like this, I know there's nothing crazy about it. I know that the synesthesia is exactly what it is, and I know the potential of perhaps where that can go to, and also incorporate all of the other gifts that Kelly and I have been given to be able to help Grace and you and Aquila. So
Yeah.
thanks for helping me with the memory and helping people helping people understand why it's so important to move past being skeptical and allowing us to be human beings to our fullest potential.
Erin, it's such a pleasure. And that's why when we started our call and you said you didn't remember, I'm like, wonderful, because what a gift it is for me to be able to share this with you again and help you remember a little bit. How fun that you get some memories back too, because you did such a profoundly healing, supportive, phenomenal job that it's really just such a pleasure for me to get to help you remember that.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what, Carmen, I don't remember anything else. I just remember it to the so it seems that as you bring it up, the guides are like, oh, we're just gonna let Carmen talk and then Karen will remember. I can't get ahead of you in the memories though, which I think is cool. Anyway, go ahead.
So triangle.
So we had this healing triangle for quite some time. This is before she started to take her steps.
Yeah.
Where we were to be at certain locations with her, doing different roles, very well articulated. Aquila and I had you on speakerphone at this point with your permission so that Aquila could hear the instructions as well. And we both, thank goodness, again, because of the relief of hearing your voice, of hearing your affirmations, of already having such trust with you, that allowed us to have the openness to really get in our body again, because it was traumatic for us to witness this, and be able to actually be the grounding, loving support for Grace, which I don't think we could have done even a fraction as much had we not had that clarity from you in the first place. So that allowed us to really stand in that triangle of healing with her for quite some time, support her in her first few steps as you narrated from a distance. And just so there's all the clarity in the world, this is speakerphone with no visual. So there's zero visual happening other than what's happening for you synesthetically and with your gifts and all the pieces there. So and it was very clear from you and the guides and from Grace herself, both what we were seeing and what your messages were, that we were helping this not become the trauma that sticks so deeply that she cannot recover from it. Because it could have very easily been the injury to, even if it didn't take her into the spirit world in that moment, become that thing in the not too distant future, both for digestion, because her her digestive tract when we're in shock, especially horses, they have such sensitive stomachs and their digestive system is so precarious at times. That's the number one cause of death for horses, to have what we call colic, where they have, potential torsions in their intestines, or gas or blockages that cause incredible amounts of pain, and then damage that's not that it can't be undone. So keeping her digestive system functioning, keeping her muscles and body from storing it so intensely that it causes other potential fatal issues. There's just so many reasons why in that moment, of course, she still had healing to do after that point, but it helped move the initial blunt force of the trauma through, down, out through her feet into the ground.
Carmen, you've done an exquisite job of explaining it. Can I jump in now?
Please.
From my perspective and what I can see now as you're talking about it. So I'm trying to draw on what's happening right now and what memories are coming back up at the time. There are several things here. One of them is that I do love sacred geometry in healing. And when this happened, and currently, as you're talking, I can see and remember the geometric shapes that Grace was using to heal the body. So Grace's spirit is the one that's in control. It's not me. It's not an outside source. It is Grace's soul. So Grace comes in and she, just like each one of us, is responsible for our own healing. Grace comes in to say to me, this is what's going on in my body. These are the geometric shapes that I need. So if she needs a triangle for you guys, then the three of us create the triangle. That's perfect. So that might be the perimeter of this is where we're going to work. Then Grace is then responsible to say to Kelly or I as the energy healers, but so are you and Qui at this point. And every person is part of the healing. So in a nursing doctor environment, the technicians are part of it, the cleaning staff, every single person is part of the geometric shapes and healing. And so what Grace then is responsible to tell me is how to create those geometric shapes so that she completely heals. Here's the deal. She will then start creating all these geometric shapes. So if people start thinking of constellations and the stars at night in the sky, that's what it looks like. So you get a drop, or you get like one star in an organ. So we might have to put some anchors or some stars in her digestive system. And then, so we might have like a shape in there. And then we want to take that and we want to pull it outside into like in the area around her and secure it into other geometric shapes that will help her heal. This is what she shows me, and this is how I know how to place you in Aquila, and how when she starts moving to another step in her healing, which I want to explain in a minute, there's the physical geometric shapes, there are the emotional geometric shapes, there are the mental geometric shapes, there are the geometric shapes where she's looping this now, because what I adore about this is that we don't just want to heal the fall that she currently has had. We want to go back, I call it threading the needle. We want to go back into all the other experiences that she's had of trauma to be able to go in like threading a needle. We want to catch all of them, and then we want to pull, we call strings. We just want to pull it all through, which starts making spirals. And you just want to, as energy healers, we want to start creating all these spirals using the proper geometric shapes. I haven't got a fucking clue how to do it. I only listened to Grace. She is the only one who knows how to heal herself, just like each of us are best at knowing how to heal ourselves. And that's why we have to make the connection to the soul to do the healing. You can't do healing on the deepest level possible just with a drug that isn't going to create any of the geometric shapes. And I'm not trying to poo-poo the drug or the surgery and all of the modalities that humans have created. Yeah, we want to access every single one of them. But what Grace is facilitating here through you and Kui and I is healing on the deepest level possible.
Exactly. I'm just bursting over here because I feel it, I believe it, and I got to witness it in this crazy, intense, difficult, but beautiful way, real time. And of course, having my own experiences from the past there too. And, lots of ways. It's all over our world, it's all over our life if we're choosing to lean into that. But not all of us get to have that kind of clarity, not because you're doing it, but you offer that translation. You offer the help to understand what's going on so that we can do the best job possible. And one of the things that Grace was sharing through you in that moment is that she was really deciding through that healing process whether or not she wants to be in this world anymore. She was really unsure, and the process of doing this work, the three of us, helped her remember, and we were intentionally helping bring memories to her of what it is that is her purpose here, and what the beautiful parts are of the world that she lives in here, to help her remember why it's worth staying. So helping her get memories of and connection to the land, and really feeling the support of the land around here, to the horses who are still here, including the horses who left, because it was very clear that that spiritual connection is still present, and helping her remember that she can still be connected to them even with them gone, and remembering her purpose in the work. And that's what I'm really excited to kind of come full circle in our conversation to, because this experience has transformed how she shows up in the work.
Can I pause?
Yes.
Because I'm excited for this next part, and I'll make this brief. But I just want to speak to the people who have lost someone or a pet that they love, who have experienced their own trauma, because death is a physical trauma, right? Where you might be sitting here going, well, that's great. That's great. Grace chose life. She chose Earth. And how come mine didn't? How come mine couldn't remember? And the remembering is not always going to be in favor of Earth. Purpose is not always in favor of Earth, right? And so Grace was, and that's amazing and great for us who didn't have to lose her, but that's not what it means. There's not one definition. So if your person committed suicide and had moments before or hours before they actually passed, the healing is happening anyway. The geometric shapes are threading all of the needles through the trauma anyway, to stay or to transition. And I want people to know that, because it's not that your person or your soul didn't fight enough or didn't remember enough or didn't have enough time. It's that the healing is happening regardless of where that physical soul needs to transition to.
Really appreciate you sharing that, Kelly. Partly for myself too, because I know the day is coming when I will have to say goodbye to her and our other amazing partners that we lean on and work with here and love and cherish, with 4 and 2 legs. That happens. So, hearing you share that and knowing that in my being really helps feel more courageous to face those horrible moments. And I'm so relieved that Grace's purpose came through for her, and she made the decision that it was worth her sticking around, because it really could have gone the other way so easily. So I'm going to very briefly describe the recovery process that she's gone through, because after we got off that call, of course, that wasn't a one and done. There's a lot of healing that still had to take place and is still taking place. We have many body workers who come and support the horses for different needs, chiropractic, using amazing technology to support them, like this pulsing electromagnetic field machine, massage, cranial sacral, other kinds of energy work that we're doing all the time, that Karen does when I've had check-in calls since the initial injury. So there's a lot of physical support and emotional support that continue to take place after the call. In fact, one of the most heartbreaking and meaningful moments I've ever had with a horse was after the call and before all the rest of the healing journey that's continuing on, where Grace, who's very protective of her space, she likes to be touched, but only in a certain way. She doesn't want to be confined because of her history. I mean, I don't think any being wants to be confined, but she's extra sensitive to that, understandably. And after the call that day, she just wanted me to hold her, to hug her. And if a horse could ugly cry and sob, that's what she would have been doing. I've never had a horse breathe in that kind of way with those just for a really long time, where she was crying on my shoulder.
Wow.
That kind of release is not possible and kind of unheard of in horses. Like I've shared that with some people, and I know that they look at me a little bit disbelieving, or maybe very skeptically disbelieving. And yet I know that that kind of release was possible because of, again, the translations that you were able to offer us, Karen, and our collective energy work and support in such an immediate way. Horrible thing to watch, to witness her go down in that kind of sense, but what a blessing, what a gift to be able to know exactly what had happened and support immediately. So whether it was the initial moments or the long-term recovery, because there probably is permanent damage for her, not only is she older and these are serious injuries, but any horse, any being with that kind of intensity and trauma, it tends to have this cyclical effect where it keeps resurfacing in different kinds of ways. And so we really didn't know what that was going to look like for her over time, whether she would not want to be involved in the work with people anymore in the same kind of capacity, or even not even capacity, just period at all. And for a long time, she did not. And of course, at the beginning, I didn't even ask her. It was only about her recovery and supporting her through that. And as her body started to show signs that she was able to move in different ways again and have more mobility come through and have more kind of life and spirit in her eyes and moments of joy and parts of herself come through that I hadn't seen in a long time, I started to ask her the question when we had clients here, would you like to work today? And for a very long time, it was no. And that was completely okay. And that's a big part of our work here, is that the horses get the choice. We're never going to force the horses to be in the role of therapist for the person. That's totally unethical and completely counterintuitive to the work. In large part because of what we were just talking about, where the work has to really come from the individuals involved. I am not creating anyone's healing here. It is happening as a choice from the person's spirit and the horse's spirit. And I am similar to your role, Karen, but in a very different context and meaning. I am a translator. I am holding the space to create the bridges to help bring out more understanding to what is actually being chosen by them and actually being done by them completely. But I get to just be in that beautiful role of witnessing it and helping it bring it more to the surface a bit more too.
Like mother, like
I
daughter.
am. Thank you. Not to say I don't bring my own gifts to the work as well internally, because I'm doing my own healing work in the process. Not that the sessions are about me. They are absolutely not. And I am part of it. My energy is part of it. And that's, I think, connecting back to what we were talking about. And I hope that listeners can really look at their roles through that lens, no matter what their role is. We don't have to be part of an ER team. We don't have to be part of a, supporting a traumatic event to recognize that our role, whether we are the center of it or not, has a huge impact on every other being around us, that we really have these very important connections, and the way that we present ourselves within and without matters. It makes a huge difference. The horse work proves that to me every day. The work with you proves that to me all the time. And I'm so grateful for that. What I have noticed with Grace, and what was shared by you, Karen, I believe in a follow-up session, checking in on how she was doing in her recovery, is exactly what we're seeing now, where Grace is transitioning from more of her mothering role into a leader role. She's always been a leader in many ways, and she's raised the bar. This traumatic experience, this depth of healing, has allowed her to remove some of the over responsibility that she was carrying, and show up still lovingly, fiercely lovingly, but also not as attached to the outcome, and really okay with her own discomfort and others' discomfort, and actually experiencing way less of it herself, because she's able to sit in that and go, I have nothing to prove. I'm going to show you a different way. I'm going to role model a healthy behavior. I'm going to create a beautiful invitation to work with me with the mask off, showing up authentically, whatever that is, but authentically with heart. And if you're not willing to meet me there, that's okay. But I also don't want to engage any further.
Yes.
But the next moment, if you do, I'm right back there. So she's not holding a grudge. There's no resentment. And I'm watching her do that with the people, with the horses, with herself. And again, she's so wise. She's been an amazing teacher, healer, guide in this work for years now. And I've seen that element come through, but not in the consistency that she's bringing it forward now. And not also in the way where she is more selective in who she's working with. That's not to say anything negative about the people she chooses not to work with. She just knows where she is most needed and where she can be most effective. And she is conserving her energy to make sure she plays those roles and doesn't use her energy in ways that it's going to be wasted. Or maybe where she knows one of the other horses can absolutely handle it, so she's not over responsible in that sense either, where she's like, no, you need practice, you need the experience. I don't. Go for it. You can handle this client.
Grace.
Exactly. I need that t-shirt. I should make those t-shirts.
For a long time, there was that Instagram thing where it's like, this is Ted. Ted doesn't give a fuck. Be more like Ted, right? It's like, Grace is that. I want that with Grace.
Oh my gosh, me too. Yeah. And she teaches us, at the farm about that more and more, and helps me have the courage to do the same. And I think that that's one of the most beautiful things that I get to witness in this life, both within myself and those around me, especially her, is how to move through those moments of pain and devastation and transform them into the most important learning and growth opportunities. Not to say that we want or need any of the trauma. We can be amazing people without it. And when it happens, how do we use that as our fuel, our transformation point, the flash point to make some really important life decisions and shifts? I was listening to our book club book. I'm so lucky to be part of your book club. It's so much fun. And it's The 7 Levels of Intimacy by Matthew Kelly. And there was a quote that I was listening to it this morning on a walk before we recorded this podcast. And it came through, and I was like, that is what the story is. And he says, we shouldn't fall in love. We should rise in love. And that is the story. Grace fell literally because of the way she was overly attached in her love and the trauma and all kinds of things. I'm not just saying it's only that, but there's an element of that at play. And this process of her healing and her recovery is helping her and all those around her learn how to rise in love instead.
You really did this, like you just did such a beautiful job. But I also want to point out here that you are so Kelly's sister. You are so sisters in spirit, you two, because she just got finished telling me about the very same line in that book when we were recording for patrons for the next 2 chapters, which we do on Monday mornings together at 11 o'clock. And she loved this. And then it warms my heart to see my other daughter valuing the same life lesson, valuing the same choice to grow in all aspects of your life, not where you just pick intellect or you pick financial growth or you pick one area or 2 areas, but that the 2 of you pick every area of life to grow and you value all of them.
Okay, so before that just happened, I was gonna say, like, why is she yelling? Like, her tone just changed. She started yelling into the Zoom microphone. It's okay. I like the passion, and you're right. I did get really excited about that part, and I was saying, like, I've been saying this my whole life. Why is it falling in love? Why isn't it like the thing that makes you like feel like you're on top of the mountaintop, right? The other thing I wanted to say too that really stands out in this story for me, if people are drawing on this love story, and there's a million love stories in this story, by the way, not just between Grace and these other horses, but between you and Grace and you and Aquila and all of the different connections, is that when I'm gonna lump the 3 of us in there with Grace and Aquila and everyone else, when we show up with this purpose, when we show up with this love, when we show up with this intention, the way in which you live in other areas of your life completely transforms, right? So for you, Carmen, to build this bond with Grace, and for me to build this bond with Karen, when we have met each other, I've never been a horse person, but because I see, feel, know, hear you, and just all of the ways that I can validate and witness your existence, it makes me trust everything you tell me that you know about Grace. So whether or not I'm a horse person, whether or not I'm comfortable standing next to this giant magical being becomes completely irrelevant, because Carmen trusts her, so I trust her. And I see that with you and Karen as well, where it's like, well, what do I know about Kelly? Then that must be true about Karen, right? And it just, this beautiful trust happens, this beautiful intimacy can happen on, speed is not the point, but I'm still going to say on a faster level and on a deeper level, because there is integrity as a thread woven through everything that you're talking about. And these connections and this healing become that much more accessible. And I love every little bit of this, and you're an excellent storyteller on top of that, just in terms of your human self. I want to hand it back to you. Yeah. And really, I'm trying to say thank you.
Oh, it's such a deep pleasure. And I just love being your sister.
That you have given me too, where it's like, okay, I have never understood or known or been exposed in order to understand how beautiful teachers are that horses are. And it's like, okay, no, I believe you, and I'm open to that because of who you are.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that. And I also want to share with listeners that I would really love to meet you. And part of why I wanted to share this story now is because we are going to be running an open house. And although that's not going to include the direct work with the horses, it is this opportunity to visit our farm for free, to eat some deliciously prepared food by Chef Aquila, to enjoy some like little wellness stations. We're gonna have a little raffle, just a light day, May 13th from 11 to 3 p.m. So if you want to actually meet Grace over the fence, experience this incredibly beautiful healing land, which is part of the Anishinaabeg and Mississauga Nations, Robinson Huron Treaty 61 and the Williams Treaty, and experience what it is a little bit that we do here, to have a bit of a taste, I welcome you to join our open house. So if anyone wants to do that, you can go to our website, horsesensenorth.com, click register for a workshop, and that's the first thing that'll pop up is the open house. You can register through there. We do ask for people to register because that way we can make sure we know about food restrictions. We have a way to contact you just in case there's anything that comes up. And that's also how we're going to share our address with you, because we don't actually make our address available publicly anywhere in too much of an obvious way, because people see or think or hear Horses Farm, amazing, let's do a road trip. And not to say you listeners would do this, but we do have a lot of people who want to just do a pop-in. And part of the importance of the work we do is making sure it feels very protected. So having someone pop onto the farm just because they felt like driving by that day would potentially devastatingly interfere in the work that is happening in a private session. So that's why we'll just share our address with you once you've registered, and then we have that clear commitment of when and how you will be visiting here. But yes, please.
Because that's exciting and everyone should want to go to this, but you completely undersold the experience of your farm. The magic on this land is ridiculous. And please go to the website. I can't stress this enough. Go to the website, and once you're registered, or if you're hesitating, go watch the video of her farm, because it's going to just give you a tiny little spark, the most that a movie can do, to actually help you understand just how visually stunning it is, how peaceful it is to just be on the land. Then on top of that, all you said was the word delicious for the food, which is a gross understatement, because what kind of chef is your husband? The food is magic, okay? It's not just yum. It's not just a little food station. It is they're delicacies.
Yeah. We've eaten his food.
Yeah. Right. And then on top of that too, just being amongst the type of people who will want to be on this property for these reasons, you're also going to be amongst that company. And I haven't even mentioned the freaking horses. So,
and I want to mention too that I follow you on Instagram. So if someone's on Instagram and wants to look up Horse Sense North, they will get to see pieces of your land. They will get to see the horses in you, and there are some I see with Aquila in them as well. If they want to kind of, like Kelly is saying, take a look at it, but also not just, it's not about taking a look. It's about feeling the energy and feeling the vibe of what you guys are doing that's coming through in those.
And I think there could be a lot of ands. I want to say too, if you really are thinking of going, and hear me out here, there's so much that you can take from this land. There's so much that you can take from the experience to fill you up. And what happens is, in the process of taking and you being filled up, automatically it overflows your cup, and you're giving back to the land because of the deep appreciation that you can't resist experiencing. I don't know how else to say that. It's like this instantaneous overflow, and then you're also giving back by being there because you wanted, you desired this experience. So don't think that your presence, if you're in a sad place right now, or a heartbroken state right now, that you shouldn't go here because this is a magical place and you aren't magic right now. This is a two-way contribution that could be so beautiful for everyone involved if your intention is right.
I love that you just shared that. Thank you for helping me describe it so much better. And especially what you just shared, because I think that ties right back into the story with Grace, and a huge theme and visual in the work that I do, which is that infinity sign, that 8 turned on its side, where there's that reciprocal exchange of energy in a beautiful flowing way, where we get to really support one another, no matter what state we're currently finding ourselves in, if we have that intention to heal. So thank you, Kelly, for your beautiful articulations. Thank you, Karen, for your gifts. Thank you both for your friendship. And thank you to the listeners. because I love being connected to your community in this way. And I'm so glad that you get to appreciate these two amazing women, hopefully as much as I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Coffee with the Sarlos. If you enjoyed the show today, help spread the love with a like, share, or review of the podcast. See you next Saturday with a brand new episode.